Okay guys, today I'm going to show you how to produce the semi-fitted sleeve. It's actually quite a simple sleeve, and today we're using, our block is the Bodice, fit, once again close, front, no seam, French, back, seam with French darts, and our sleeve is the basic set-in sleeve. If you're familiar with sleeve cafes, then you can play around with this between 1 and 3 centimeters. Otherwise, if you're not, then leave it at 2, as this will give you a nice fitting sleeve head for your block. You can always reset the defaults. Next, we're going to go to download our block. It is we're not actually going to be using seam allowances just because the e-patterns that we use for these courses and tutorials are all through the e-pattern download. So you don't have to worry about seam allowance. If you want to find out more though, you can read more here about seam allowances, or you can read more about e-patterns in this little drop down. First of all, I'm going to download the bodice block and basic set-in sleeve together. The reason why is because if you play around with your set-in sleeve and then you go back to try and find your bodice block, there's no guarantee that this sleeve that you create will fit with the new bodice block. So always download these together. Never go back and redo your patterns, just in case. So let's go ahead and download these. I'm going to create a folder on my desktop and call it semi-fitted sleeve. There we go. Tutorial. Let's just click save. Lovely. And next I'm going to download my basic set-in sleeve. Same again. Basic set-in sleeve in the... It seems to have disappeared. Right. Anyway, sorry. Let me just do that again. So let's download the basic bodice block. Make sure where it goes. So new folder, semi-fitted sleeve tutorial. Let's create it, and then let's put bodice block. Let's go 004. Let's give it a unique identifier. Let's go to our basic set-in sleeve and download that. Save it in the same location, the same folder, and let's call it 004. So they match. Let's click save. Okay, we can now actually navigate away from the lab. We no longer need it, and let's open up Illustrator. Okay, so let me go to my semi-fitted sleeve. Let's grab the basic set-in sleeve block and open up in Illustrator. Okay, so this is our pattern in SVG format, opened in Illustrator. If you are not familiar with drafting patterns or amending patterns in Illustrator, then we have a lovely tutorial that will help you get the basic knowledge for Adobe Illustrator, which show you kind of like tips and tricks when it comes to some of the tools that we use. You'll be able to find that at the very bottom of this post, so go and check that out if you're not familiar with Adobe Illustrator. Otherwise, also, yeah, that tutorial shows you how to navigate the page. So for example, hold down your space bar, you can drag and drop around. Also Command plus zooms in and Command minus zooms out on your keypad. So let's get drafting. Okay, so let's start drafting our semi-fitted sleeve block. First of all, I'm going to do a little bit of cleaning up on this pattern because it's a little bit messy. So first of all, with my big selection tool, if I click on the block, you can see everything has been grouped. I'm just going to object and ungroup it. This allows me to then go in and select different elements within the block without anything getting in the way. Also, this pattern has a fill. It has a line and a fill. If you click on the large white square, or, for example, this is a line because it has a line, this is a fill. Simply just delete the fill. This allows you to then select with inside that pattern and it not actually pick up the pattern. For example, if I were to select inside, you see it's automatically picking up that block when it has the fill. So just remove that fill. Next, we're going to get rid of some unwanted lines. So first of all, let's get rid of the front quarter line and the rear quarter line. Let's also delete the elbow line. And let's also get rid of the slash and also our grain line, because essentially this seam here, or the center line, is as well our grain line. So I'm going to select that, and I'm going to go Object and Lock it. Object Lock Selection, just so we can't edit it, see? And then I'm just going to pick up all of this, because obviously those lines overlap, and I don't want to get rid of both, and then just delete. Let's zoom out. Okay, then let's go Object and then Unlock All, so we get that line back. Perfect. So we now have our semi-fitted sleeve, which is great. Okay, so next what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to start shaping or contouring the underarm seam, which is this one down the side here, both these two. It's up to you, depends how much you want to reduce your sleeve by, but always take a note of how much you're reducing it by. Make sure it's not smaller than your actual wrist. So first of all, I'm going to reduce this by -3 centimeters on one side. To do this, simply use your small selection tool, click and drag over that point, and then hit the Enter key, which will bring up the Move dialog box, and go -3. Minus is to move left, and then +3 is to move right. And we're not going vertically anywhere. We're just going along that axis, and just hit. You can preview as well if you want to. Click OK. Next, we'll do exactly the same to the opposite side. We're going to select that point using our small selection tool, just clicking and dragging, and then we're going to hit the Move dialog box and go 3 centimeters, and nothing vertical. Preview. Yep. OK. Great stuff. Next, what we're going to do is start to create a nice curved seam here, because at the moment it's very, very straight. So I'm going to first of all select that point in this corner. I'm going to go to my pen tool, click and hover, or click and hold, move down to corner anchor point tool. I'm then going to click and drag, you see, until I can actually create a nice curved seam going vertically up. Hold down the shift key and you'll get it to lock in different angles. I've covered all this before, but it's good to go over it now. But simply move that bezier point all the way up to that elbow line, holding down shift all the time so it's a nice vertical line, and that gives you a beautiful curve. Go down to the bottom, click, and simply drag that one back into place. Same on this side. I'm just going to click and drag, hold down the shift key. Okay, I'm on the wrong bezier, so I'm going to let go there. I'm going to pick it up again, shift, and click and drag that up to the elbow line. To get the bottom line, oops, let's just go to our small selection tool, click off, click on that line, and then pull that handle back in. So that's now, we've got some beautiful curvature on the underarm seam. Okay, so next we're going to actually curve this bottom, what do we call it? Sorry, we're gonna curve the cuff line here. Okay, so first of all, we're going to draw a point. Now, there's many ways you can do this. In past tutorials, you might have seen me draw a point like this. I've actually found something that might be a little bit simpler and easier to produce. So all we do is simply get a circle. So I'm just going to simply click and drag. Now, if you hold down Shift, you can constrain the proportions. So click and drag on the circle tool. Otherwise, if you don't hold down Shift, you're going to get a weird, odd shape, and that's going to be difficult for us. So, once again, go to your circle tool, click and drag, holding down Shift key until you get a nice circle. Let's also change the color of this line, just so we can actually see it and it's visible as almost like a tool. There we go. So I've just simply done that by selecting the object, clicking the line color, selecting the color I'm looking for, and then obviously just increasing the width of the line if necessary. Let's then just drag that to that center point at the base or the cuff of the sleeve. We're then going to measure 4 centimeters along from this point along this line towards the front. The reason why is because eventually we're going to be swinging this panel here in forwards. Okay, so we're going to open up a dart here and we're going to close this cuff even further. So this measurement is completely up to you. I'm using 4 centimeters, which would give us a total reduction of, let's say, 3 centimeters plus 3 centimeters is 6, and then 4, so a total reduction of 10 centimeters on the cuff. Okay, so whatever you do, just make sure it's not, don't use too high a value. Make sure that it'll still fit over the palm of your hand or your wrist. Okay, so I'm going to use 3 centimeters, 3 centimeters, and 4 for my cuff. I'm then simply going to select this point. I'm going to hit enter, and let's take the preview off. I'm then going to move to the right 4 centimeters, and we're not going vertically anywhere. Let's do the preview. There we go, that's 4 centimeters. I'm going to copy this. Next, I'm going to grab this point with my big selection tool, and I'm simply going to copy and paste a new one in using Control C, Control V. Control C to copy, Control V to paste. I'm going to paste in another one, and I'm just going to place them. So one at the very tip of my cuff or underarm, and then we have one which is at the center of my sleeve, and this one which is floating somewhere in the middle. I'm going to select all of those 3 simply by clicking and dragging those 2, then holding down Shift and clicking on the last. I'm then going to go to my Align tool or Distribute tool. Now, usually it's in here. If you can't see it, go to Window and then Align, and that should bring up the dialog box for you. and I'm going to align them or distribute them horizontally. Okay, so they're now going to be spaced. That means that this point here is falling halfway between these 2 points, which is perfect. Let's just delete that, delete that. What I really wanted was the halfway point between this point and this point. Okay, so next I'm going to select this point, big selection tool, select this little marker, my move tool, I'm going to go 0, and then I'm going to move this up by 0.75 centimeters. Okay, we can preview that. That's where my point's going to land. So let's just hit OK. So essentially what I've done is I've taken the distance between this point and this point, I've halved it, and then measured up 0.75 centimeters to find this point. Next, I'm going to select my pattern, so my small selection tool. I'm going to select this point here. I'm then going to cut with the scissor tool, just here. I'm going to cut this point and cut this point here. So I have this line all by itself. Using the small selection tool, you can select that line. Next, I'm going to add a point. I'm going to add an anchor point, just here. And then I'm going to use my convert anchor tool, click and drag. See, now we're adding a bit of curvature to the bottom of this, this cuff. I'm just going to simply drag that point until it meets the center of that mark that I placed there earlier. Okay, and now we have a really lovely, beautiful curved sleeve cuff. Okay, next, because obviously this line is separate from my main block, I want to make sure that it's still joined. So I'm just going to small selection tool, this one here, click and drag, and then going to right click and join those 2 points. So now when I click on it, you can see it's joined. I'm going to do exactly the same on the opposite side. Click and drag, right click, join. Okay, so that simply just joins that line back to the block now that we've shaped it. Also, I can get rid of this point now, so I no longer need it. Keep this one though, because we're using that to rotate to. And next, we're going to actually start to rotate. We're going to cut this panel out, so this panel piece here. We're going to cut that out and then rotate it in, so we get a dart here and we get a much smaller cuff. So to do that, I'm going to use my small selection tool. I'm going to click on this line, go to the scissor tool, click, and cut in those 2 locations. Okay, so you can see that that's now separate, and obviously this piece is now separate. So next, I'm going to get my big selection tool. I'm going to click on this block here, or this panel piece, let's say, you can see it. I'm then going to go to my rotation tool, which is this one. I'm going to click it, and then I'm going to click where those 2 lines intersect, because that is my rotation point. Let's just click. Now we have that rotation point set. I can now rotate it around that rotation point. So simply all I'm doing now is simply opening up this back and rotating it around until we meet that point. Easier way to do it is to grab that point, click and drag until you get to the center point of your mark. There you go. So let me just fill this in so you can see what it is that we've done. So click, click. There we go. So I've just joined that up. Okay. Let me show you how I did that. So I simply went to my pen tool and then I clicked on this point. You see how it turns into a little line? That means adding to that line. So click to add. Then that is a point to where I want my line to go to, and then there to finish up. And that is my block. It's meant to be my block, but it's disappeared. Okay, yep, there's my block. Perfect. So next on the agenda is to simply transform this dart. So let's zoom out a little bit. As you can see, it's starting to slowly take shape. We have our nice curvature of the arm, and we have this much narrower cuff, and we have our dart opening up. Now, this dart is absolutely huge, so we want to reduce that. And the easiest way to do it is simply go to your line tool, and let's click and drag to measure the opening of that dart. Now, I'm still clicking and holding here, and you can see that it's 2.45 centimeters. That's what the little grey box appears with. So I know the distance between that point and that point is 2.45. So let's just let go. Next, I'm going to delete that line, and I no longer need it. However, I'm going to click just once, and it actually remembers the angle at which I drew that line, and it even remembers the amount that I drew that line, so 2.45. I'm going to divide this by 2, and you can do that simply by adding in a, what would you call it? A forward slash, sorry. You can do that by simply adding a forward slash. So this is 2.45 divided by 2, very similar to Excel. You can simply click off, and it will show you it's 1.23. and also we have our original line distance or line angle as well. Simply click OK. So the idea of that was simply to measure the distance between the two darts, or between the two dart ends, and then find the midway point. Next, we're going to, with our line tool, click and drag until we get to the very, very center point. And also, I haven't let go, I'm still clicking and holding. It's 13.88, so I'm measuring the length of that dart. So next, I simply want to halve the length of that dart. So let's get our little blue tool, let's copy and paste it. So remember, it's 13.88. I want to find half the distance of 13.88. So with my point, I'm simply going to move it. Let's go minus 13.88. But I want to halve it. Okay, so half the distance. And that gives me 6.94, and it even gives me a preview if you have your preview selected. Okay, so it's half the distance. However, we're going to add an extra centimeter in a minute as well. So let's just click OK, and there's our point. Next, we're going to do the move again. We're going to go -1, and then we're just going to hit OK. Oops. There we go. So we've moved it half the distance of that dart +1. Okay. Now, the reason why we drew this line is so we can line this measurement up on this line here. So let's simply select that point, go to our rotation tool, and then let's measure, or let's rotate it. So the measurement has been taken along the center of this dart line. Next, I can delete all of these guidelines because they're no longer necessary. We can even get rid of this one if we want to. So next, I'm going to simply start joining up my block. So let's just get rid of, let's go to the cut tool, just get rid of these points. I'm going to go to my pen tool, I'm going to join this point to the center of my new dart and to the back of the underarm sleeve. So now we're slowly taking shape. We've now got our back dart and we've now got our nice curvature shaping of the underarm. It's just, however, the bottom or the cuff that we have to fix. As you can see, we've got this little lump here, or this little kind of like indent. We can now actually remove our point here, so just simply select it and delete it a few times. We're then going to go to our cut tool, and roughly about where that line comes down, or would essentially intersect the cuff, we're going to just make a little incision. We're going to cut just there, and we're going to delete that line. And also, if you just trace a nice smooth soft line roughly to about here, okay, we're also going to delete that line too. So we're going to cut it there, and then we're going to delete that line. Next, we're going to go to our pen tool, and we're going to click on that anchor point, and then click and hold, and then slowly with our beziers, we're going to drag it out until we have a really lovely, nice, smooth curve. You can see we've got a slight little nick here. If you want to be really pedantic, you can go in and simply drag that until it's smooth. There you go, you can play around with that line a little bit. And then next, let's just, with our small selection tool, bring that line down to meet that curve. I mean, I'm still not overly happy with that curve. If you want to redraw it, you can always use your pen, click a new point and a new end point. So this is separate to your actual cuff or your pattern. Go in, convert anchor point tool, and then trace it almost, but do it with less points. It's probably a nicer way of doing it. There we go. That's a much cleaner line. Let's just make that blue and give it a stroke weight of about 2 so we can really see it. Next, small selection tool, let's get rid of our existing line. In fact, there you go, just move it down. Get rid of our existing line, which was a little bit broken and messy. Just delete, so I've just cut that out and deleted it. And then, big selection tool, let's just move this up until it meets the existing block. And all we do is just go small selection tool, click and drag, and then right click, average. This will average the 2 points, just so they meet, and then join. Once again, select over both of those, let's go average, OK, and then join. And that is our finished block, or let's say semi-fitted sleeve block, yeah, with some really lovely shaping. and that should fit quite snugly. Okay, let's just change that to black and reduce the line width to 1. That's perfect. And now we can also rename it, so it's not basic setting sleeve anymore, it is the semi-fitted sleeve. Perfect. Also, let's just add in our elbow line as well. You probably should have left it in from last time, but let's just draw it in anyway. And let's just name that elbow railway. Lovely. And that's our block. If you want to finish it completely, then simply big selection tool, select the whole thing, and then go object and then group, so that when you do bring it with other patterns, it's then one item and it doesn't get lost or elements don't move around. So if you want to learn how to add seam allows to this block and then place it on a multi-page PDF document to then print out at home so you can start twirling, there should be links to that in the very bottom of this post, so simply just down below. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Take care.